Welcome, ladies and gents. Chris Andre here. You can find me at BetBoxing on Twitter. Of course, you can subscribe to the channel. Let's talk boxing because we have a monster fight this weekend between Josh Taylor and TEOFIMO Lopez. You know, a lot of people have sought to almost write these guys off because of their most recent displays. And I find that just ridiculous, to be honest with you. You look at somebody like Josh Taylor. Sure, I felt he lost to Jack Catterall. I felt it was a clear Jack Catterall victory. Even if I gave the swing rounds to Josh Taylor, I still felt Jack Catterall won the fight. However, it is possible to have a bad night, to not make the weight well. It's possible to come up across another really good boxer who's just all wrong for you stylistically. It doesn't mean that he absorbs your CV and suddenly he's better than you. Sure, he should be the champion, in my opinion and in the opinion of most people, but it doesn't sort of dismiss all of the things that Josh Taylor has achieved. He's arguably still the best fighter at 140 pounds. There's some unknowns there because we haven't seen him fight in so long, and he did really struggle to make the weight against Catterall. He seems healthier, aesthetically speaking, for the build up to this fight. But the point I'm making here is that Josh Taylor, Catterall or Prograis are the top dogs at 140 pounds. Now, wherever it is that you stand on that, bearing in mind Josh Taylor's beaten Prograis, he's a king in this division. And he's coming up against TEOFIMO Lopez, who was a former undisputed lightweight champion, who's beaten some top level guys, as in top 10 level guys. What he did to Comey was exceptional. Who does that to Richard Comey? He's beaten the likes of Nakatani when he was a real problem for a lot of fighters. He's beaten Sandor Martin, another guy who goes under the radar, very difficult to look good against, a very good fighter. And of course, he has the elite win under his belt in Vasyl Lomachenko. This guy is no joke. But because he lost to Kambosos and people expected him to blow out Sandor Martin like that was an easy fight, people are sort of undermining Lopez. Make no mistake. When you got two top level guys that are being doubted and they know that because of public opinion, they're in a desperate situation to win, it sets it up for an absolute war and fireworks. So how will this fight go? Let's get deep. Let's get technical. You know, when it comes to Josh Taylor, we'll start with him. The best thing about Josh is his variation. He can get on the back foot and he can box. You saw that, for instance, against Victor Postol. He can get on his bike, he can move around the ring, and he can box. If he needs to come inside and turn it into a war, that's when he excels, to be honest with you. He's so good at changing the levels with his legs. He uses his legs for leverage. So he's very smart in the sense that he doesn't just tie you up like a Lawrence Okolie and stop you from working. He'll come in low and push off and bump you using his brilliant legs to generate that leverage to bump you off, then step around you or stay on you, keep you off balance essentially using his legs. And then he'll work on the inside. He throws a lovely shovel, uppercut, left uppercut stroke hook to the body or to the head. Really dangerous shot for him. He's fantastic as well at shifting his weight from the front foot to the back foot as he's stepping out to line you up with a power shot, whether it's a pull counter or an uppercut. So if you chase him and he's on the back foot, he can be damaging. If he chooses to come inside and get in the pocket, he can be damaging, and that's where he really excels. Because against Prograis, when he wasn't doing as well, in my opinion, on the back foot, he then just switched it up and decided, okay, now we're going to go to war. And it's not just a case of, right, I'm going to bite down on that gum shield and this is a brawler. Like I said, he's very, very good with the technical elements up close. You look at a guy like TEOFIMO Lopez, though, he will look at certain aspects of Josh Taylor's game and he'll say, you know what, I might be able to exploit one or two things here. You see, when he seeks to generate leverage to throw a big, powerful shot, one of the things he'll often do is pull that left hand away from his head when he's going to throw the right hand. And for a sharp counter-puncher, that could be something that you can have a lot of success with. You see, TEOFIMO Lopez isn't really a guy that changes levels particularly effectively, but he's got wonderful upper body movement when it comes to shifting side to side, to rolling with shots. So when you're throwing a shot, he'll often roll and come back with a very short, sharp counter-punch. And that's where he's most dangerous. So he'll look at that little element of Josh Taylor's game here and he'll say, you know what, if I can get him to commit to big shots, I can roll with shots and come back with big powerful shots. And because I've got the shorter arms, it's going to take him longer to reset with those longer arms than it will for me to land. And make no mistake, TEOFIMO Lopez can bang. And there's nothing to suggest that that power won't, carry to 140 pounds. You have to understand, guys like Sandor Martin are not looking to engage. They're stepping back. So when you're landing a shot and he's stepping back, it takes something off of it. If your target's meeting you, then it magnifies the power of the shot. So make no mistake, Taylor can potentially get hurt here. We've seen him dropped against Jack Catterall. We've also seen that sometimes he becomes a little bit too keen to enter that pocket, too aggressive as he was against Catterall. And that's when you can start walking onto that really good laser-like jab, which is something that Teofimo Lopez has at his disposal and something that Jack Catterall caused him problems with. Now, there was an area that Catterall caused Taylor problems with that doesn't really apply here. And in fact, when you're looking at this specific dynamic, it's an area that Josh Taylor is going to look at and say, I can actually capitalize here. You see, one of the things that Jack Catterall was doing is changing the levels, the height dynamic, bending forward after catching him with those up jabs, landing those really good up jabs, coming low and then thrusting in with the shoulder into the solar plexus of Josh Taylor, and then coming up with underhooks and tying him up. And it was stopping Taylor from essentially being able to work. He was smothering Josh Taylor. The thing is, though, because it was southpaw versus southpaw, what Josh was really struggling with, and it took him ages to identify this pattern and to start to change it, is that he was shooting that left shovel hook, one of his best shots, consistently. But because Catterall was bending away to his, because remember, he's a southpaw, so he's bending inwards towards his own left side. His chin's hidden behind that shoulder. So the only way that Josh Taylor could really land that shovel hook would be to try and get it underneath the armpit. But unless Catterall's committing with a shot that you can come underneath the armpit with, it sort of cuts off that trajectory. And he was struggling really to find a home to land flush on Catterall, despite the fact that he was so aggressive. With Teofimo Lopez, you don't have that orthodox southpaw thing, or rather southpaw versus southpaw. But in addition to that, Teofimo habit. So I spoke about in the build up to the George Kambosos fight, and I said Kambosos could have a lot of success with this particular shot, and he did. Kambosos throws a really nice uppercut off of a left hook. Again, a shovel hook type uppercut. Well, because Teofimo Lopez, when he's surprised and he's caught suddenly, one of the things he can tend to do, like I said, he tends to roll with shots, right? When he's caught suddenly and he's not expecting it and he's not in a position to roll, or when there's been really good variation with punches, it's not a pattern he can see. So it's, you know, if he rolls to this side, he knows that when the next, because that shot's come over, he knows the opposite shot's going to come, he's looking to roll again. And from there, he can throw big shots. But if he doesn't quite read that pattern and he gets himself into a position where he's surprised, he tends to duck forward, right? But when I say duck forward, he bends down and his head goes more towards like a 3 o'clock. And from that 3 o'clock position, he doesn't do something that, say, Devin Haney does. When Devin will duck, he'll often come to a 3 o'clock position and pull back, so his head then moves to 5 o'clock. So he's changing the angle of his head. And from there, because he's got that range as well, when you're then trying to come inside against Devin Haney, you're overreaching. And by overreaching, he can then shift that weight off that back foot through to the front foot and shoot that shoulder into the solar plexus, what Catterall was doing to Josh Taylor effectively, but from the opposite stance. And then from there, he'll tie you up and he'll grab you. And we know that he loves a clinch, does old Devin Haney. But that element is not something that Teofimo Lopez has. He gets surprised, he ducks forward, and then he sort of stays forward and then tries to pull back up. And in that position, there's a pattern. And when it comes to ducking forward onto that shovel hook of Josh Taylor, that's one area you don't want to be. Because again, he can change the angles on you with his legs. So he's landed a big shot there. He'll land another one step around you and keep going. And he'll keep bumping you and keeping you off balance. And he can put you in a very precarious situation if you're being surprised. So the suddenness of Taylor could cause issue to Lopez here if he's able to read the pattern of his dip, of his bending. The other area is that Teofimo Lopez has quite a low lead hand and he'll shoot the up jab from there. And by having that low lead hand, because you're not seeing it come at you in a straight line and it's coming from low to up, he almost surprises guys by coming through the bottom of the chin. It's like an up jab. But because he's looking to roll, when he's in that position, one of the areas that Lomachenko had success, and so did Kambosos, is that you can get a hook over the top of that shoulder. Now, if you're thinking of a Marcos Maidana type of trajectory of shot, the one that comes up and down, in that sort of region, because it can come over the shoulder and land, you can have success against Lopez. But in addition to that, Loma would shorten it up and just throw a high hook. He's not looking to load up and then rise with a hook. He's literally almost placing it up and down over the shoulder. Just a quick, short, sharp shot as a setup shot. And again, that's from a southpaw stance. And it's almost as though Lopez sometimes doesn't see it because it's so short, it's almost hidden behind his shoulder. So by the time he catches a view of it, it's sort of bypass the shoulder. He can't see it when it's this side of the shoulder. So by the time he sees it, he's getting caught with it, and from there you can then let go of a bigger shot. And that's something that Lomachenko was able to do against Lopez and have success. So that's an area where I think Josh Taylor will also look to and say, you know what, I can potentially catch him here, not just with left shovel hooks, but high right hooks over the top, lead shots basically over the top of his lead shoulder. Now, one of the things I'll say also about Josh Taylor, he's quite linear in his entry and exit. He fights in a straight line. Sandor Martin will step out and then move around the ring. And so what you saw with Teofimo Lopez there, with that height disadvantage, is that often against the guy who's looking to step out and then come off the angle, Teofimo would be overreaching. And I felt he had a lot of success that was going under the radar from the commentary team with the big powerful shot to the solar plexus. And I want you to look out for that shot here. He's going to look to target the body of Josh Taylor, and he started to bring a shovel hook of his own into the body of Taylor. Something that was a new development for Lopez, because in the past he'd been a little bit of a headhunter. And if Josh looks great aesthetically but is struggling a little bit at the weight, that could be an area where Teo would have been working at to say, you know what, let's test that body. So look for those shots. But when Sandor Martin's stepping out, he's then coming off to the side. When Lopez is overreaching and landing that first initial shot, he then has to reset. And so what you were seeing is individual pot shots. It became a question of, can I bypass the long jab of Sandor Martin, who's looking to stay away? And if so, can I then land more than one shot? The answer was usually no, I can't land more than one shot. So it became almost like a pot shotting competition, and I had Teofimo Lopez winning by a single point. I had him winning, in other words, by 2 rounds to 2 points, but there was a knockdown against him. So he ended up winning by a single point on my scorecard. So it was a close fight. He was struggling with Martin in that regard, and that is something that Taylor's capable of doing, as he showed against Postal, but more often than not, he's more linear. He likes to be in and out. So there's a potential there for Lopez to land a shot the first phase and then be there for the second phase of attack. But that's where Taylor's also dangerous, like I said, because he can shift that weight onto that back foot with a pull counter or with an uppercut. And Lopez at the time was leaning forward when he was overreaching with those shots. So he could walk onto something there too, but he will fancy his chances of getting closer to Taylor more consistently than he did against somebody like Sandor Martin. One thing you do have to also consider is that if either guy is going to win this fight, the one that would be more beneficial to Top Rank winning it from a financial perspective is Teofimo Lopez. If Lopez beats Josh Taylor, think about how many big money options he's got. He could end up fighting Devin Haney. There's history there. There's a big rivalry that the American fan base will buy into. And if what Paulie Malignaggi is saying is to be believed, then Devin Haney has already signed with Top Rank. If it's not to be believed, well, Bill Haney was still telling Fight Hype, or rather Fight Hype would telling Bill when he was in agreement, that Top Rank had been treating them really well and they're happy there. So it does look like Haney's staying with Top Rank. If that wasn't to happen, you've also got the option of a rematch with Vasyl Lomachenko. You also have the potential of a Shakur Stevenson fight. So there are a lot of big money fights there for the American market if Teofimo Lopez was to win. If Josh Taylor was to win, he's just not the same big name in the United States. And to be honest with you, Top Rank never did a great job with Josh Taylor. And so as a result of that, you'd have to look at this and say, you know what? He's not a big star in the UK, although he can sell out arenas. And I did put up that video earlier this week to show the atmosphere and the sold out arena here in the UK when he fought Regis Prograis. So how they've not pushed Taylor more in the UK is beyond me. But this is not the sort of big British backed fighter that you typically get when they're as decorated as Josh Taylor. And so he could have the Catterall rematch. That's an option there that would do really well in the UK. And he's spoken about that being on his radar. But that would be a big fight here in the UK, even if he was to lose the fight. Whereas if he wins, are they really lining him up straight away to go and fight Terence Crawford? So from a financial perspective, it suits Top Rank for Lopez to get the decision. And this is something Joe McNally has spoken about openly. And what he has since said about that is, we don't want to leave it to the judges. We know we've got to get a knockout, and if it does go to the judges, we've got to make it so convincing that they can't possibly rob us. Is that going to put Josh Taylor in a position where he's being too aggressive? Not intelligently aggressive, but seeking a knockout, in which case that walks straight into the game plan of Teofimo Lopez, who's looking for those short, sharp counter punches. Also remember that Teofimo Lopez has quite a clean style. You see the rolling and counter punching and the way it lands flush and hard and clean. And so that translates quite well with judges. Whereas Josh Taylor, a lot of his work's quite subtle because it's inside, and so he'll land short little shots that maybe sometimes the view of the judges is maybe obscured by the shoulder of someone, the elbow of someone. I don't know, but if you look at the Ramirez fight, for instance, he won that fight more convincingly than the scorecard suggested. I think in the first 4 rounds, I had Josh Taylor 3-1 up after the first 4, same as Hatman. But the commentary team were giving too much credit to Ramirez, I felt. So the way it's scored and observed can potentially affect the scoring of this fight. If there are close and competitive rounds in there, it might be that the judges are looking at the obvious work that's landing from Teofimo, and the shorter shots, say from Josh Taylor, might be going under the radar. So you have to bear that in mind when you're judging this fight, and the possibility of Teofimo getting this on points. Having said that, I just feel that if Taylor is healthy, he's the bigger man and knows how to fight like a big man and knows how to box too. And with Teofimo early on looking to close the range, if he is able to close the range, then Josh Taylor has a very good game plan for plan B, where he could literally fight like a big man, offset Teofimo and start to get him off balance. Now, he could get hit with something massive and get dropped or stopped even. I wouldn't be stunned if that was to happen in trying to do that. However, just from a probability perspective, I feel that there's more ways in which Taylor can win the fight. If Teofimo is struggling to close the range like he did against Sandor Martin, and he's getting caught with power shots as Taylor steps out and shifts that weight so well and walks Lopez onto stuff, it could start to look like a really long night for Lopez from very early. Do you see what I'm saying? So whichever way you break it down, there's a plan A, a plan B. There are different methods that Taylor can use to try and adjust, whereas Teo needs to be landing his flush shots clean, and I'm not so sure he's going to be able to do that as consistently as he'd like. I have to take my hat off to him though, because once again Teofimo Lopez is looking to take on all the sorts of challenges that the vast majority of the other lightweights are simply not willing to do, and there are others that are put on pedestals that are not taking a fraction of the risk that he's taken. So I've got to give him massive props, but my pick is for Josh Taylor to win this fight, either on points or perhaps even a late stoppage, but I think it's likely to be on points. I think he'll outwork Teofimo, but I wouldn't be stunned if in the middle rounds Teofimo was to land something big and possibly even get Josh Taylor out of there. Let me know what you think, ladies and gents. Please don't forget to hit a stiff jab on the like button, a right cross on the subscribe button, and an uppercut on the notifications button. Thanks for watching. Chat to you soon. Take care. God bless.